Hey nerds! Thanks so much for your patience for this video. I've been working really hard on it, so I hope that you guys enjoy. But I just wanted to say that I had made this video, or I'd recorded for this video in 2022, and I think all of the stances that I have on these board games still stand, and I don't think I would change the rankings, but I have been able to play some of the expansions that I mentioned for each of my rankings, so I just wanted to say again, thanks so much for your patience. I just wanted to make that clarification for you guys. And without further ado, let's dive into my top 10 games of 2022. Hey nerds! What's up? As we are getting to the end of 2022, I compiled a list of all of the different board games that I've been able to play this year, and I am amazed to see how many board games I've actually been able to play, 50 to be exact. And this is just a hobby. So with all of this in mind, of course I had to make a couple of lists for you nerds. So today's video, I'm going to be showing you my top 10 favorite board games that I've been able to play this year, along with some honorable mentions because there are so many. Before we dive into this list, I also want to say that of course I'm going to be making an aesthetically pleasing list as well. Just explaining and talking about some of my favorite games that I thought were just so beautiful and aesthetically pleasing. That one won't be a tier list, it'll just be a list of so many of my favorite beautiful games that I was able to play. But now, jumping into my favorite games of this year, I'm basing this top 10 tier list based on the complexity of the game, the mechanics of the game, the overall look of the game, and of course, how much fun I had playing. I had this list ready, and then guys, Frosthaven finally arrived at my friend's house and we were able to play Frosthaven, so it jumbled things around just a little bit. But anyway, let's get on with our number 10, Everdell. I've talked about Everdell several times on this channel already, praising its beautiful artwork as well as the tactile resources that you can pick up along the game. Everdell is an excellent tableau building worker placement game with adorable artwork and a very cute woodland world to live in. I really enjoy playing it every time that we do, but particularly this year, my favorite way to play this game was with the Spirecrest expansion. Now, I haven't been able to play with the Belfair or Pearlbrook expansion, so this is just my personal preference of what I've actually been able to play. The Spirecrest expansion comes with additional larger beasts that you can place your small creature token on top of. Each larger creature has its own name and special ability that will help you throughout the game. This expansion also comes with an addition to the main Everdell board, adding a new element to the game of going through a trail and collecting map pieces to create additional ways of getting points at the end of the game. There are of course requirements, having certain amounts of resources or coins by the end of the game in order to achieve those extra bonuses that you are picking up along the trail. Along with the trail, there are seasonal conditions. There will be conditions like certain spaces that you can't land on, or you can't take a card from the meadow. Overall, the Spirecrest expansion really just adds on to the world building of Everdell, as well as those additional features, including the trail that gives you additional bonus points at the end of the game, as well as the new creatures that your base characters can ride on top of with their own special abilities as well. Our number 9, Wingspan. Wingspan is an open drafting, hand management, and collecting board game. I've also talked a lot about Wingspan on my channel. Wingspan has beautiful artwork and has really made me appreciate and love all of the different types of birds that we have in this world. Each expansion that's come out with Wingspan has just added even more bird types as well as different abilities, including, I believe it is a European expansion that adds the nectar, which is just a wild resource that you can use to play your bird cards. My favorite way to play Wingspan is definitely with all of the expansions. I'm really excited for the Asia expansion and the additional expansions that are coming for Wingspan. Along with the European expansion, I do believe they also added a new board which incorporates the nectar, and the nectar also is a way to get additional points by how much nectar you use in each section. I've really just enjoyed the gameplay of Wingspan. It's a game that's quick to pick up and is very satisfying to create your own collection of birds. With the end of round bonuses as well as end of game objectives, there are so many different ways to obtain points throughout the game, as well as the tactile and fun elements of the game, including rolling the dice at the bird tower, as well as the different resources and eggs that you can use. Next up to our number 8, Iki. Iki is an open drafting, tableau building, semi-worker placement board game. Not only is the theme of Iki something that I really enjoy, you get to dive into what you imagine Japan looked like during the Edo period of Japan, which is a very popular historical period that a lot of anime and different stories definitely focus on, with their beautiful artwork depicting the different types of artisans and vendors you would see during this time. I'm a big fan of Japan and learning about Japan's culture and history, so I think that's a really big element of why I love this game so much. This game, of course, incorporates a ton of different ways in order to obtain Iki, which is what represents your victory points at the end of the game. Placing your workers, collecting different types of shop owners, buying fish and tobacco and pipes, and building buildings, as well as rotating around the market in order to attain all these things, having different abilities and icons that help you either move around the board more or collect abilities, as well as aging up your workers so that they can retire. There are so many different ways that you can collect your points depending on what you're going for. And it's a really fun game where there's not a whole lot of waiting your turn. You're always investing and seeing what other people are doing, as well as going through the different seasons. You get different types of workers, as well as dealing with the fire that comes throughout the entirety of the game. That's an additional element of danger, as well as trying to add complexity to the game by making sure that you're keeping an eye on your fire track. This game has been super fun to play with my sister and my brother-in-law, and we've really enjoyed just seeing the different avenues that each of us have gone down to try to collect the most Iki. So I would say that this one is a fun game that really doesn't have a dull moment in it. Number 7, Seven Wonders. My number 7 is Seven Wonders. Of course, this has been one of the most beloved games and best sellers in the board game world, and I can completely understand why. Seven Wonders is a drafting tableau building game that's very quick to pick up, and you can play rounds and rounds of it. With the different types of cards that you can go for, whether you're going for the science track, military, getting those elements in order to create your wonders, but with beautiful artwork, and especially with the second edition with those gilded beautiful cards with the different types of finishes on each age. It's just a really fun way to play. Now, I've only played with the Seven Wonders expansion leaders a couple of times, but I definitely enjoyed the element that it adds along with it. I also know that the other expansions like cities, people really enjoyed that one too. So I'm excited to play with those expansions and just add more to the already very excellent gameplay of Seven Wonders. Sometimes you just need a quick game to break up between all of those longer, even campaign games. So I really enjoy having this in our board game arsenal. On to my number 6, Dune Imperium. My number 6 is Dune Imperium. If you can't tell by now, a lot of these games on my list are going to be some sort of worker placement and either deck building or tableau building type of games. They're just really fun and add a little bit more complexity to your game with lots of things going on at once. Dune Imperium is another great game that allows you to have not a lot of wait time between your turns, as well as you're keeping an eye on where everyone else is going throughout the game, which keeps you engaged in the game. My favorite way to play Dune Imperium is definitely with the Rise of Ix expansion. Not only does it add additional characters with their own special abilities, but with the Ix boards that go over top of the base game board, there are just additional elements, including the dreadnoughts, as well as the shipping element of the game, which gives you extra bonuses that you can stack on top of each other. Not only is it a great worker placement and deck building game, but with the additional element of the battles at the end of each round, that just adds another element for you to be working towards and giving you those extra bonuses to start the next round. It's a great element that fits so well with the theme of the entire game. I've played this game so many times this year. It's been super fun, not only with the flavor of this worker placement game, but again, with just the rounds and rounds that I've been able to play and learn and strategize with all of the different elements. It's definitely recommended. I'm excited to play its second expansion, Immortality. On to our number 5, Root. Another similarity you might see on this list is that I am a sucker for woodland creatures and fantasy element type games. Root is taking Everdell into a more darker route with battles between woodland creatures. Not only is the art just so storybook and really fun to look at, but with all of the different types of factions throughout all of the expansions of Root, there are so many ways that you can go about trying to win the game. I personally love playing with all of the expansions, of course, having all of the different factions at your disposal. Even with the new and broken but awesome Lord of the Hundreds. All of these factions are super fun to play with and strategize with. I personally love to play with the Corvid Conspiracy. It's super fun to mess with everybody else. The gameplay is excellent, like I said, and again, it's one of those games where you're not waiting super long for your turn because you're watching what everyone else is doing, either messing up where your workers are placed, battling you, or stealing land that you need. So it's very fun and interactive, but with the complexity and fun that comes with more experienced board game players. To my number 4, Tapestry. Tapestry is a civilization building game where you have to utilize your resources well in order to advance your capital city into prosperity. There are a lot of components to this game, including hand management, area control, and dice rolling, but it's a slow and steady type of game that's really fun. Every player gets to go at their own pace. My favorite way to play Tapestry is definitely with all of the different expansions, plans, employees, and art and architecture. I really think arts and architecture has rounded out the whole game, and it has a similar deck component to the technology track, but with the different bonuses and one-time use instead of 2 different bonuses based on if you have met those conditions. I think one of the main reasons I love this game and have played it so much is that it emulates life simulation a little bit like the Game of Life or The Sims, games that I personally love to play. So it's really fun to have all of those different types of civilizations to choose from at the beginning, as well as how you want to picture to advance them throughout their lifetimes. To my number 3, Too Many Bones. Too Many Bones is a dice-building, role-playing, cooperative game where you can choose your class of character, take on bad guys, and collect different treasures. Each time you play, it's a different scenario, and you build on your character's skills after each round with dozens of different types of dice combo at your fingertips. The game is filled with humorous text and so many bad guys to choose from. This is a really meaty game with lots of mechanics and iconography to learn. My first ever game with this took about 3 hours to play through the entire scenario. But once we got it down, we played it again and again, each time passing more quickly than the last and loving the gameplay of it. The artwork looks like it's straight out of a Dungeons & Dragons book, and it has beautiful details and a really rendered world. It's extremely satisfying to have your whole party win against the big bads, and just like Dungeons & Dragons, you're at the mercy of how the dice rolls. I definitely want to explore more and more of this game, and it's been super fun to learn. It's so high up on my list because of the experience and the joy that it is to play role-playing like games as well as cooperative games. My number 2, Lost Ruins of Arnak. My number 2 is The Lost Ruins of Arnak. It's a worker placement deck building game with ancient ruins and monstrous guardians. My favorite way to play this game is definitely with the Expedition Leaders expansion. The personalized starting cards and special abilities that each leader has adds more options to each player's turn and comes with 2 more research tracks and brings a lot of variation to the overall gameplay. I've played enough of this game to try out all of the different leaders and the different research tracks. We always played my sister's version, but my husband and I love it so much that we bought our own copy. The artwork is immersive and beautiful, and you really believe in these lost ruins. There are plenty of tactile features in this game with the different resources and idol, guardian, and research tokens. It's simple enough to catch on to quickly, but with the research track and the deck building components, there's enough complexity to keep you invested in the game. I have loved playing this game throughout the year, and that's why it's second place on my list. Before I reveal my number 1 pick of my favorite game that I've played in 2022, I'm going to shout out some honorable mentions. Great Western Trail, with its deck building, hand management, and set collection, I've really never played a game quite like Great Western Trail, where it combines so many different game elements that's really fun to play. It has a huge board that has just a unique layout to it, following the path to get to the fair, as well as the train station that goes around the board game, as well as finding the employers on the side of the board and the selling and collecting of your different cow types. Like I said, there's a lot of elements to this game, and it was really fun to try out this year. And the overall look and feel of this game really brought it all together. Parks, with the Nightfall and Wildlife expansions. Parks is an open draft set collecting board game with beautiful artwork from all different designers celebrating the different national parks around America. I've covered this game as well in my aesthetically pleasing board games, so I've really enjoyed just revisiting this game over and over. And with the expansions, it just adds more parks to visit as well as different features that just add more elements to the overall gameplay. Spirit Island is a cooperative area control game where each player is a spirit with unique abilities to help protect the island from invaders and colonization. I really enjoyed the artwork and overall feel of this game, along with the unique shape of the board and the cooperative nature of the game. Trekking Through History, which is another board game in the Trekking Through series. I really enjoyed this iteration of the game. I thought it was a simple one to pick up and a quick one so you can play rounds of it with beautiful artwork and overall matching colors of tokens. It's very tactile with its open drafting and set collecting of the tokens and the different time periods. Finally, Viticulture, which is a work placement contractual hand management game with an overall theme of owning a winery, making wine, and selling to different vendors. I've definitely enjoyed playing the Essential Edition of Viticulture with the addition of new types of workers, along with the feature of the map on the board that just adds another element to your game, vying for control of different areas of land, which gives you extra points at the end of the game. One of my favorite parts of this game is actually the unique turn order. Depending on if you complete your season first, you get to choose what order you want to go in for the next year, but you can't go to the same row that you did last time, which gives you certain bonus. I like that. Very much like life, each year is going to look different, and for the players, that means each player can go in a different turn order, which will really affect how that round will go for each season. And of course, my number one is Frosthaven. My number one is, of course, Frosthaven. And the only reason that it has pushed all of the other games aside and became my number one is partially because of the weight. If you haven't played Gloomhaven or Frosthaven, Frosthaven is a deck building, role-playing cooperative game that is very similar and comparable to Dungeons and Dragons or any other types of role-playing games. So we played Gloomhaven right before COVID, and then during the time of lockdown and COVID, we played a ton of Gloomhaven. Gloomhaven was a great way to pass the time, as well as keeping isolated and inside. Gloomhaven is one of the best games that I've been able to play with such complex scenarios and the high level of campaign in each scenario. I swear we barely got through, but it's so satisfying when you do achieve and win those scenarios. You level up your character after certain amounts of experience, the items you collect, and all of those elements just feels like you're playing a video game, or like I said, a role-playing games like Dungeons and Dragons. So Frosthaven, when it finally came out like 2.5 years later that we've been waiting for this to finally arrive, but because of COVID, everything was pushed back, we dove into Frosthaven and played the first 3 scenarios. So I'm not going to show you any spoilers, of course, but just plain re-immersing into the world of Gloomhaven, or in this case, Frosthaven, it just felt like home. Frosthaven is Gloomhaven 2.0 with even more ways to play the game, including collecting resources to help build the city of Frosthaven, which just adds another sort of life simulation farming adventure game, which I love, like Animal Crossing or Stardew Valley, as well as the scenarios are just as challenging as I remember them to be, with 16 different types of classes to choose from and unlock. It's super exciting, along with the overwhelming amount of different scenarios and paths that you and your party can go to. It is absolutely immersive. The world building and lore is so excellent. The artwork is beautiful. The collection of notebooks and manuals that you use is not too overwhelming and very organized, so that you can just keep going and collecting on the board game, as well as the stickers that you place overlay on the map, amazing miniatures that come with each class, all of the different monsters, the cards that you get to choose from for deck building. There are just so many excellent avenues to play, as well as they fixed some of the issues from the original Gloomhaven, as well as some of the broken classes and ways to play. So it was so much fun and well worth the wait. So that is why Frosthaven is my number one choice. I am just so beyond blessed and grateful for the opportunity to play so many of these board games, and that you guys are so enthused and stoked about watching these board game videos. So I really appreciate it. You nerds are awesome. Thanks again so much for watching, and I'll see you guys next time. As a fun bonus, I thought you guys would appreciate me reading off my list of all of the games that I've been able to play. Seven Wonders, A War of Whispers, Atlantis Rising, Azul, Azul Stained Glass of Sintra, Biblios, Quill and Parchment, Cartographers, Dominion, Dream Home, Dune Imperium, Everdell, Fantasy Realms, Flamecraft, Frosthaven, Great Western Trail, Hibachi, Honeybuzz, Horrified American Monsters, Iki, Kemet Blood and Sand, Lost Cities, The Lost Ruins of Arnak, Machikoro 2, Meadow, Oceans, One Night Ultimate Werewolf, Pan Am, Pantone, Parks, Phase 10, Photosynthesis, pun intended, Race for the Galaxy, Root, Sagrada, Scythe, Silver and Gold, Skyjo, Spirit Island, Splendor, Tapestry, The Night Cage, The Search for Planet X, Ticket to Ride Europe, Too Many Bones, Trekking Through History, Viticulture, Wingspan, Yahtzee.